Welcome back, everyone, to Open Up with Lockie. This guy, me. This is number 238 with brother Hemi. And I guess for context, we're both in Perth and met you in person. I think it was at Unleashed that Davey and Dan held at EQ Wellness Centre, and you come in and did your thing, and it's very masculine, but there was like this loving, nurturing, feminine energy within this big hunk of a human. And like I said to you before we started, I think from that moment I just bought into you as a person, just because I hadn't quite seen that delicate balance of masculine and feminine, and especially being a Māori, and then
Mm,
with my background, like being super disconnected from the culture, it felt very, very safe with you. And so from then, I was bought in, but from then till now, there's been this, like, I guess even deeper transition for you, where you've been through so much, and I've seen it all on, not all, but I've seen a lot of it on social media, and I just keep thinking, holy shit, how is this guy surrendering to all of this? I'd love to get to know what he's going through, what he's been through, and see if I can pull some gold nuggets out of it. So that's the context as to why you're on here, bro. Like, deeply
mm,
appreciate you and you giving your time.
mm. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here and such an honor to connect with you once again, this time virtually. And it was amazing to connect with you in person at the event that Dan and Davey held, the Unleashed event. Prior to that, my awareness or understand or knowing of you was through the podcast that you were doing, and then just some of the videos that you're putting up online and just mutual friends online. Um, and then I think I followed you on Instagram. I was like, cool, this guy, and like you alluded to, being Maori, and it's for me, there's a soft spot about Maori and people from my home country doing positive things just because I've grown up in there, and everyone sort of tall poppy syndrome and everyone, and a lot of people have so much potential, so much gift, whether that be leadership, whether that be um, music, singing, dancing, skill work, hammer and nail building, so much talent, and that's what I see. This is my perception, but I see a lot of people suppressing that from back home, and to see a brother out there doing these positive podcasts and talking about mental health and stuff, I was like, man, I'm gonna keep following this guy. And then I had the privilege to meet you in person, and thank you for that acknowledgement, because back then I was right into my masculine, right into my, and I was more masculine than feminine, and that was my driving force. It was hardcore training, gym, beating the body down, recovering, discipline, waking up, routine, regimented. Um, and that served me very, very well back then. It served me very well. I was coaching from that standpoint. I was helping people go from lack of confidence to just the saying goes, man up, and take your power back, and that drive and that willpower. And that's where I was coming from, and I was going through a transition back then into balancing more feminine out. And from then, and I think that was about, how long ago was that? 6 months ago?
Yeah, it would have been about that.
About 6 months ago. And it's like my whole world has turned upside down, then back around, and then inside out. And that time. Oh, so
Nice.
yeah. So a lot has happened. A lot has happened. Is there
um,
any specific area that you would?
let's I guess give people context around where you're brought up and how you're brought up.
Yeah, so originally brought up in New Zealand, North Island of New Zealand, east of the North Island of New Zealand. I usually say the town of Rotorua or Rotorua. And then a little bit more east of that, then I usually say a town called Whakatane. And then a little bit more inland from that is a small town called Petiko, also known as Texas. Texas is the nickname because we used to ride a lot of horses and people used to drive past and go, "Well, man, this little town looks like Texas." So I got the nickname because we used to ride a lot of horses. So it's a small town. Just to give more context, it was about 1,000 people in this town,
Wow.
and it was spread out as well. So there were three shops, I think it was, one pub. So quite a small town. A lot of farming happened there. We did some farming as well. We grew up um, farming, sweet corn, watermelon, kumara or sweet potato. So we grew up working. The old man, dad used to put us through our paces, and I think that's where we got our work ethic from. Digging holes, laying up the plastic, and picking, doing all that stuff. And we used to get paid with having dinner. All right, you guys get dinner tonight. So we were quite poor in relation to everyone else in that environment. Um, but we did the best with what we got. That made us resourceful. Um, and yeah, grew up swimming in the rivers, jumping off the bridges, fishing, eeling, hunting. Um, Up until the age I was 13. So I got to experience culture, I got to experience tradition, I got to experience, you know, haka, kapa haka, everything to do with Maori tradition. And then from the age of 13, come over to Australia to a completely different environment. And I brought the same personality traits over. So at that age, 13, I was becoming a wannabe man. Going through that transition of adolescence, and trying to find your ranking in the food chain, um, and bringing over that Maori small town demeanor. So getting into a little bit of trouble over here, going to parties, exploring that lifestyle, getting into fights and trying to outrank other male. I swear a lot of men can relate to this, especially indigenous brothers, trying to find your position. So yeah, and then I've always had a passion for training. Rugby was my staple, was my foundation. If I don't know, if it wasn't for rugby, I doubt I'll be the person I am today. That kept me disciplined. That kept me um, understanding how to deal with failure. Losing a game, working in a team, which is another layer that has just come through in the last couple of weeks. Is working with a team. Another layer of it. It's taught me so much. Having mentor, having a coach, having someone that you can look up to, a healthy masculine figure, and having a brotherhood, having a pack of brothers who are all working towards the common cause, is to win the grand final. So having that direction, that drive towards an outcome. Yeah, and long story short, I got invited to church, to a Christian church from a friend at high school when I was 16. I went there, and then I just seen so many positive male figures that could express themselves. And coming from the background of my father, who was quite suppressed and he was quite tough loving, it was unusual to experience that men were supporting each other and encouraging me to do the best. And that was the biggest takeaway. Yes, I connected to spirit, and I did have moments of connecting to God through some of the journeys that I went through. Then went away, went back into partying, and then I was like, there's more to life than just partying again, and getting into drugs, and there's more to life to living in this loop. Although drugs, or depending on how you use it, changes the name of it or the label of it for me anyway. There are some substances that brought greater perception for me, and it just made me curious. And from that curiosity, I was just asking questions and looking and asking questions. So from about the age of 20 to now, I've just stayed curious because I've experienced that there's something more than just this physical realm. Um, and yeah, I suppose the last 2.5 to maybe 3 years is when I started consciously expanding my consciousness. Prior to then, it's been a byproduct of me going through these life experiences. So
Love
yeah, and
that.
then now I'm here.
I've got a few questions, bro.
Yeah.
In like when you moved to Oz as a small town, small town kid
Yeah.
from NZ, Indigenous, like didn't grow up having much, like working for your dinner. Was there? I know you talked about like finding your place. Was there ever a need or a feeling that you needed to mold yourself to fit into a new culture over here?
There was there was this disturbance um, when I come over here. It was all exciting and new to begin with. Oh, I knew I was a tourist, and then a couple of months later, it's like I'm living here. Then what come up for me back then was being so different in the way that I thought, in the way that I held myself, and I suppose I was quite a masculine guy. Um, I was like, man, these. I don't want to come across judgmental, but this is what I was going through back in that mind state. Was that, man? These guys here are so soft. These men here in these classes, or these boys in these classes, are so soft. Like, you know, I, I would say certain things. I would challenge them. I would challenge the teachers. I would, just be so masculine, which was quite confronting for a lot of people. But that's what I thought. And then instead of fitting in, what I did was I gravitated towards more Maori men and indigenous men who were vibrating at the same frequency, if you will. So we made small packs. Then our packs made a bigger pack, and because we were carrying the same energy, the same demeanor, the same personalities, sometimes the same trauma patterns, the same pain bodies, we were building this larger group or this larger entity, and we're sweeping the neighborhoods, running amok, graffiti, parties, fights. So instead of trying to mold myself to fit in, I ended up just attracting guys that were at the same frequency. So yeah, we ended up just creating a little gang. That's how it folded out, man. Yeah.
I guess like one thing that struck me, and I guess for someone like me who hasn't been immersed in a church or been to a church to, I guess, and experience that spiritual side of it. If I've been to church, it's generally been for a tangi or a funeral,
Mm,
for something like that, or a celebration. And so I haven't been there to connect to God or anything like
mm.
that. When you said you had those sort of experiences with spirit and that connection to God, for someone who hasn't been to church, could you explain what that's like and how that differs from, I guess, some of the experiences you've had in delving into consciousness in the last couple of years?
Mm. Um, so it was a Christian. I think it was There's all like subdivisions of it. So they have their own unique uh, traditions. They have their own unique traditions. So like breaking bread and remembering Christ, um, and communion, drinking the wine that represents the blood and the bread. And there was certain traditions that were held in this particular place. Um, but for me, what I really enjoyed was community. What I really enjoyed was there's parts where they play music, and that's called praise and worship. So they'll praise, and just celebrate and just raising your vibration, just praising, God, whatever you refer to God as, and for because a lot of people have their own perceptions and their own understandings, and it's quite easy for anyone and also people in the church to give off a particular projection of what God is or what God looks like or how God is. So end up interpreting these perceptions of what God is. A man up in stairs with a beard and sitting on clouds. So now my understanding of God is just the infinite allness and nothingness simultaneously. So praising, playing music, the drums, the guitar, and worshiping, and drop into the state of just celebrating, you know. And then worship. Worship is basically dropping into like going from celebration to sacredness. Is dropping into like this more the sacred, slower music, deep gratitude, deep appreciation, and almost like a washing away of your daily stresses, your work stresses, and just coming into stillness or presence or a connection with the present moment, with God. Um, so those are what I took away from, and I like those traditions that the church has. And my understanding of what religion is basically like a set of ritualistic behaviors or actions to help keep you on path. And it did for me for a moment of time in my life.
A very good description. It makes it sound like a energetic workshop, bro.
Yeah, in essence it is. And this is my belief and mine alone right now at this level of understanding and consciousness is that um, the essence of the church is connecting to God or connecting to higher self or to source or to infinite consciousness or whatever you want to call God, the quantum field. That's the essence. But then there's the religion to keep you there. There's all the practices and the actions and the behaviors. And I feel that some religions and some sub religions get caught up in the practices. And if you don't do the practices, and then you're a sinner, and forget, and they lose sight. This is what I believe. They lose sight of the essence of what it is. So, for example, not turning up to church on a Sunday could come across as a sin, but instead, sitting in your room and crying or connecting or, connecting to source in a different form and through a different practice, is that still connecting? Is that still part of the essence of what the church is trying to achieve here? Or are they just focusing on the practice?
I
So
like it.
that's me, man. That's my where I'm at the moment in terms of religion and spirituality. And not all churches are too focused on the practice, and yeah. So just sharing from my platform.
Thank you, bro. And I appreciate that, especially as someone with no real knowledge of what that's like.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I wanted to speak to you about, and that is at Unleashed, at that workshop where you were co-facilitating. I remember talking to you at one point, and we were talking about the ego, and we were talking about identity. and you mentioned that you went through an ego death. And I was like, oh shit, that sounds awesome, but terrifying. How do you do that? And you said, mushrooms. I was like, is that even fucking possible? And so, I thought I understood mushrooms. I thought I had a good relationship with them because I'd been microdosing. And then I guess I had a conversation with someone recently, and I was relating my experience with them to his, and he's just like, "Nah, bro, you're not taking enough to get to that state where you can have something like that." And so I just wanted to speak into that with you, if you're right speaking about that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Transparent, transparency. I've had a few experiences with mushroom and psilocybin mushroom. Um, the very first one was party, um, taking it or using it to get a high, um, and I think everyone after that has been more sacred and having more intention behind consuming mushrooms. Um, but my very first one was wild. It was terrifying. It was freaky. It was like it was about 80% terrifying, like one of the freakiest experiences I've ever experienced today. But there was 20% of awe, of curiosity, of wow, this there's something else that exists, and I can't answer it. I don't understand it, but I've experienced it. So that was in Bali, and that was where the turning point of my conscious journey began. And that was wild, man. That was no idea on what quantity I should be having, no idea of what environment I should create. I was yeah, I was clueless. I didn't know the experience. I didn't know what you were meant to feel. I didn't even take the time to quickly Google it before. I was just like, yeah, let's do this thing that I don't know much about. So I had some, and then I was like, oh, this feels interesting. So I had some more. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I kept chasing this euphoric feeling, or this cool feeling. And then I found out that I had about 7 grams. I worked it all up. I had about 7 grams. And
Wow.
yeah, there you go. If you know much about it, you know that's every. And this is the first time. This is in the midst of partying. This is in Bali, and this is out in the streets where there's so much different energies floating past. There's tourists. There's religion. There's so much different energies in there in Bali. So um it's coming on. It's coming on. It's slowly coming on. I'm like, man, this feels amazing. I feel like I can think of things that are beyond what I could usually think of. I could start thinking about concepts and ideas. And if I did this, then that would make this person do that, and it'll ripple effect out into. And I was coming up with, I was like, man, this is crazy. This is, and then I started getting a bit overwhelmed. I was like, man, this is, I don't know what to do. And it started getting a bit more overwhelming. And we're out. I was with my brother, and we're going to a club, and I was like, man, I was stuck in this crossroad. I was like, go back to the hotel and 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 hide, and because this thing has started to get a bit overwhelming, I'm starting to get a little bit paranoid. Um, or go out and try handle it and try and use it to a way that I would like to have fun with. Um, and then my brother came and walking, so I was like, "Oh, I need to go. I need to go look after him." And like, long story short, he was the one looking after me by the end of the night. So we get out there, and then I'm going in these waves, and it's coming. I'll go in these waves of happiness and joyfulness, and I had this ability to just bring the energy of the whole room up just by just vibrating at that frequency. I could just carry myself and just hold this energy and just look around, and maybe that was just my perception. And then I was starting to go into this like paranoid state, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. Who am I? What's going on? I don't know how I'm meant to act. How do I act? I was asking my brother, how do I act? What am I meant to do? Am I meant to dance? Am I meant to just stand here? Am I meant to or should I chat to people? Should I be talking to people? Am I the talker, or am I the security guard? I meant to just make sure that everyone's okay and not fighting. I'm not. I was going for all of these different potentialities of being, and it just started getting quicker and quicker. So I'll be 5 minutes. I'll be like having a good time dancing. I'll be 5 minutes, and it was coming down to 2 minutes, and then it was like 30 seconds, and then it was just all just I was going through these all different potential versions of myself to be able to express, and it was just way too much. Man, ended up getting back into the hotel and then as soon as we got back, boom, I was in different dimensions. I was in different realities. I was out of the body experiences, back into the body, releasing all of these energies that have been stored. I was releasing rage out into the room. I was releasing love. So I'll go in or out and then come back into my body, and I'll just bash the hotel. I'd like literally like rip the TV off the wall. And I was going like full on warrior rage, aggression, crazy energy, and then I would sort of dwindle out and slowly start to lose that aggression and soften, and I'll go into like this sleep, and I'll pass out, and I'll come back up, and I'll come back into this deep state of love, and I'll be like, love is the only answer. Love is the essence of allness, and I just want to love and love deep and love truly and love wholly. And then I'll come in, then I'll come out, and I'll come up with the concept, and then I'll go into the mind and come back into the body. I learned about breath work in that experience. I learned about meditation and something to do with water, something to do with water and a river running. And so I was going through all these experiences, and police come in eventually. This is going on for probably about 2 hours, and the police come in, and I've gone into a sleep or gone into a heightened state of consciousness out of the body, and then I come back into the body, and there's three police coming in. I don't know where I am. I don't know what the hell is going on. I barely even know who I am. And they're coming at me. And I'm saying, no, I'm good. What's up? Who are you guys getting? Let me help you. What's going on? Where am I? Who are you? Who am I? And yeah, ended up getting into a fight with them, getting tasered, getting battered, and ended up in hospital. So at this point they've gone and injected me with something, and I'm like, yeah, my brother's there, like, what's going on? I'm bloody. My hands are beat up, and they're all speaking a different language, and I don't know where I am, so I'm freaked out, and end up in hospital, and my brother's there, and I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? Um, I kind of was getting my understanding of space and time and who I am back, and then yeah, and then I got ushered to the lockup. So I was in the lockup, and I'm sitting in the lockup, and my hands are beat up, my face is messed up, I'm thirsty as hell, and I had this wild experience that I can't explain. So I'm sitting there. Parts of me is like, oh, you're in trouble. You're in the principal's office now. You've done something wrong now. And then part of me is like, what the hell just happened last night? There's so much more to this than I know. And ever since then, I've been super curious. I end up having to pay a bill, $6,000 to fix up the hotel, and miss the plane and had to catch a plane back. So very first mushroom experience, man, overseas, a different country, messed up, and just been stayed super curious since then, and that has been the tipping point of my conscious journey, or journey back to self, or understanding Yeah.
What has that been? Has that been a historic trait of yours to not dwell in the negative, but to stay true to curiosity? Because I can imagine a lot of people with that experience, with it being 80% terrifying, and then being in the principal's office, would run with the story that mushrooms create this sort of experience, or
Mm,
psilocybin or plant medicines create this sort of experience, when instead it sounds like you chose to go the curious route.
mm, yeah. I suppose it was part of my character going into it, part of my destiny. I've always dug a little bit deeper. I've always questioned authority a little bit more. I've always, growing up, I've always not just accepted being told what to do, but I always asked the question why, and then asked the question why, and then to the point where the person telling me what to do didn't know why, and then they would get angry and then start, you know, expressing themselves in such way. So always being curious and always having a, a deeper curiosity to know more, and then going through that experience. Yes, it was 20%, but that 20% is what stuck with me. Going back in whole, it was all meant to be. And yeah, so just keeping on the topic of your question, I've always been curious and I've always wanted to dive a little bit deeper into to understanding. Never settled for, just being told what to do. So
Cool,
yeah,
man.
part of my
Uh,
character.
when we spoke beforehand, you're talking about like being in the space now where you're figuring out like what's your true expression. Like, are you expressing too much? Are you expressing too little? You're having these new skills and this new level of capacity, or these capabilities come in and you're tapping into them. um, and also your what has intrigued me most, especially as someone who's historically had body image issues, is your surrender to allowing your body to transition from that big muscular frame into something that feels so much more, at least from the outside looking in, natural for you.
Mm. So going back to the expression side of things, um, so expression. Um, Growing up, and it's all tied. For me, it all ties back in together. Like something that happened in my childhood is unfolding right now, and it was meant to happen in my childhood to unfold right now. So growing up, I felt this suppression, the suppression, from society, from the system, from my parents. So I just felt this suppression growing up all my life, and learning more about me, learning that I was capable, and I'm quite capable of doing a lot of things. Um, I started to go rebel on suppression. So anything that would suppress or hold me back or restrict me, I would swing the pendulum in the opposite direction and overexpress, and through the masculine, um, energy would shut people down, or be real blunt or straight to the point, or to the point where even a fight may need to take place. So if someone would, hold me back or restrict me or put me in a box or even just identify me with a particular character, like, oh, you're like this. No, I'm not. Fuck it. I would have to swear.
Yeah.
I get a bit passionate. I'm like, I'm fucking whoever I want to be. Don't hold me back. Well, you got something against me? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's sort it out. So I'd overexpress. I would overexpress. And recently trying to find this balance, overexpressing the masculine, and then finding this balance with the feminine energy, with forgiveness has been a major thing with the feminine energy. Is forgiveness is, forgiving them for they do not know. They don't understand. I know me. I know how I am. I know who I am. I know the identities and the capabilities that I possess. They're just speaking from their own perception and their own limiting views of who I am. Forgive them. It's okay. Sweet. So I don't have to overexpress in the masculine. Um, and then starting to get in touch with the feminine, and starting to sing and dance and talk about feelings with people and talk about emotions, talk about my emotions, and then I started to notice that I was expressing myself in such a way through the feminine, through creative expression and whatever else, that I started expressing myself for validation, because I've been so suppressed, and I've been this capable being, and I'm still unlocking certain parts of it, but I've been this capable person that has been suppressed, and I would express through masculine, and attacking people or hissing, or and then I started expressing through a form of, I need validation for for my abilities, and look at me. And then bringing this balance back into, I don't need to express myself for any validation. I don't need to bite back at anyone for their projections of who I am. And bringing this, yeah, like I said, bringing this balance between the two. I don't need validation. I don't need to attack back. I'm all good where I'm at. I'm good. I'm sweet. I'm fine. I can express myself wherever I want, however I want, and feel comfortable, feel safe enough to hold myself in that. And then this little area of expressing myself in particular environments. So, for example, I'll just use this example of me unlocking my voice right now, right? And I'm unlocking my voice, and I want to sing, and I want to express myself, and I want to be vocal. But if I was in a library on the computer, maybe that's not the environment to express, singing loudly. um, so understanding for me now is expressing myself in a particular environment. So right now I'm at work, I'm at the gym, I'm a coach, if you guys don't know. Expressing my deep understanding or concepts of the universe to my clients is probably not the right environment to express that type of expression. So now expressing myself in a relatable way for the environment that I'm in. And
I
there's a
think that's
time and place.
that's a huge one, right? Because that's a trap that people fall into, and I've definitely fallen into that quite a few times, where it's like, no, I need to be heard. I need you to
Mm,
see me and hold me and hear me in this, because I'm happy with this part of myself and I'm proud of this part of myself. So accept it. And it's like, man, if you're trying to force someone to hear you or to see you or to hold you, more often than not, that's just going to be met with resistance,
mm,
or
yeah,
it's going to be perceived as desperation.
yeah, desperation. There's so many other perceptions, but I like to go back to the question why. Why are you expressing yourself? And as opposed to, for me, not looking or trying to perceive what other people's perception of me are. They might see that I'm desperate. They might see that I'm trying too hard. But checking in with self and going, why are you trying to express yourself in such a way? Oh, I need to be felt. I need to be heard. Oh, I didn't get heard. I didn't get felt. Growing up, I was suppressed a lot. Oh, okay. And then diving deeper into self to realize, what's going on. Because and this is for me, like, if I kept on practicing trying to perceive what other people's perception of what I am is, it's just going to keep leading to judgment or fear of, or fear of judgment, and how do people see me? How do people see me? Why am I coming up? So I've had this little shift in, where am I coming from? Who cares about what other people may see, may not see? They might see that I'm doing good, but I could be coming from a place of desperation and attention. So checking in, where am I coming from? Where am I coming from? Is is a form of another level of mature expression for me.
What would you describe that place of balance? Like, how would you describe that for you? Like, if you're showing up in an ideal way, like in line with your values and your character and the way you want to show up in the world, what would that place be, and what would that behavior look like?
Um, Balance is for me, it's such a big topic, balance. But showing up as being balanced, it's like you said, is being in alignment with your core values, being in alignment with polarity, so masculine and feminine, um, and then also what does the situation need? Like sometimes for me speaking to a client, sometimes they might need the masculine approach and they might need to knuckle down. And that may be the right approach or the most balanced approach. And for others, some might just need an ear to listen to. Some might just need to, ask questions and ask more questions and let them have the space to express themselves. Because then that's more of a feminine. So bringing that, that balance, I believe, is a balanced approach. So yeah, but I want to share this in terms of balance to attain a particular state, and I share this with my clients a lot. Is that um, understanding where do you want to be, what person do you want to be, or how fit do you want to be, or what body fat percentage do you want to be, and knowing that there's positive actions and then there's negative actions. And for that state, whether it be 15% body fat or 20% body fat, that state requires a certain amount of positive action and a certain amount of negative actions that will equal to that body fat percent or to that state of being. And balance for a person stepping on stage is no cheat meals, is stick 100% to your calorie intake. And this is a person that's bodybuilding, and maybe every 8 weeks, or depending on where they're at, they might be able to have a carb load or a refeed day, and that's balance for them. Whereas a person that wants to, be about 20% body fat, maybe every second week they can have a cheat meal, depending on how they track. Maybe loosely track, just look after their portion size, and those positive versus negative actions creates balance for their desired state of physical being. So there's another concept of balance, and that's coming from coaching.
I like that. That's really cool, man. Thanks for sharing.
No worries.
Uh, let's talk about the capabilities. If you don't feel like you've touched on that already,
Mm-hmm.
and what's evident for me, what's coming up as I'm watching you, asking you questions, is that you're very measured in the way that you respond. It's almost like this pause, this drop into the body, and speak from that place, which which I'm enjoying experiencing and listening to you when you speak from that place.
Mm. Um, Measured. It's been progressive. It's a balance for me. It's been the balance of the feminine energy and listening. Actually, listening. A lot of the times, men just want to answer, come up, with a solution, but really taking time to listen and to understand and step out of my perceptions of what is, and understanding as much as possible, where's this person coming from, and then giving that space, that gap, that time to feel into what's true, as opposed to an automatic response. Feel into what's true, and that space is sometimes all we need. to allow truth to come through.
Well, how do you discern between what is truth and what your ego wants you to believe is truth as a form of protection?
Lately, for me, it's intimacy with self, intimacy with self. It's really being honest. It's like pure honest with yourself, and feeling into, you know, that something gets triggered, and you'll put up this answer or this response because you're trying to protect something. Intimacy for me brings awareness to that trigger, and that I'm trying to use a fancy word, or a, a you know a phrase that may suit the best answer and it might sound appealing to the ears. But intimacy for me is understanding that trigger, okay, giving space to let that trigger subside, and what's really coming through, what's true. And vulnerability as well, being vulnerable enough to express that, or being courageous enough to say, I don't feel like expressing that right now. So when you ask me that question of mushrooms, which is a topic that not most people talk about, I agreed to speak on it, and I brought forth one of my values, which is transparency, and I repeated that a couple of times. Of transparency, transparency, transparency. And then it allowed a space for me to speak from transparency. But it took intimacy to identify if I had resistance to share on a podcast and talk about, a plant medicine that's illegal in certain countries. So intimacy with yourself to identify, is this a trigger, and being courageous enough to say, I don't want to talk about that right now. If you're not willing to let that wall down, or give space and time for that wall to come down and to express self. That's all I got.
Well, I appreciate that, bro, and I appreciate you being honest with that and sharing that, because I am quite surprised that you did speak about it, because a lot of people say no, and I'm always ready for a no when it comes to speaking about plant medicines, but to know you went through that process of giving yourself space and letting it subside, and then chose to speak into it anyway. I'm very grateful, bro, and what a story, hey.
Oh.
Bro, I'm gonna have to wrap this up, but I'm probably gonna end up jumping on for a part 2 at some point if you're keen, because I really want to talk about your transition physically as well, because obviously the way that you, or the frame that you had, or the meat suit that you had, like very Hercules, like fucking muscular bodybuilder looking bloke that most guys would idolize, and especially that photo of you, that photo of you, I think with a taiaha.
Yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, that's what
warrior.
I want to be. And then to watch this process of you like surrendering and continuing to surrender has been super, super powerful for me, and I know it would be for a lot of other, both men and women. So if you're keen, I'd love to have you back on for a part 2 to
Yeah, man.
speak into that and give the proper time to a topic and a subject like that.
Yeah, all good, brother. Absolutely. Let's link up for time. Um, make it happen.
I didn't expect to speak about so many different things, but like it's just nice. It's nice to speak to someone, have no real context as to the breadth or the depth of knowledge that you have and how articulate you are in expressing it or conveying that message. And it's just nice to drop in and have you be so insightful, so open, and so expressive, bro. So thank you for taking time. Thank you for the work that you've done and your ability to get that across.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure to be able to to open up a little bit deeper. Um, just because I have a lot of depth and I don't go there often with most people in society. So it's so good that you asked these questions, and it gave me permission to express myself. It's like exercising certain depths of me that I haven't, don't touch often. Um, so yeah, thank you for having me, man. And yeah, it was such a pleasure. Let's connect. Let's link up. Make it happen again. Get some more
Yes,
exercise in.
I appreciate you, my bro. I'm gonna I'm just gonna hit stop record now so I remember.